This is Gregory Majewski of Oakdale, Connecticut. You're listening to International Radio Report on CKUT 90.3 FM in Montreal.
Welcome to the International Radio Report for Sunday, December the 14th, 2025. Thank you for tuning in. My name's Sheldon. I'm here with Jill, and we have our usual 30 minutes of news and information of things going on in the world of radio. Some really interesting stories this week, starting out with an 80-year anniversary of one of Montreal's radio stations. CJAD marks 80 years as the voice of Montreal. This is by Leora Schertzer of the Montreal Gazette. When CJAD radio host Trudy Mason was hired at the station 4 decades ago, tape was edited by cutting it with a razor blade and splicing it together with Scotch tape. While much has changed since the station's founding on December the 8th, 1945, Mason said CJAD's mandate of serving Montreal's English-speaking community with local news and current affairs still holds true. Gord Sinclair was the news director who hired me. He was a brilliant radio mind, she said, of the station's respected, longtime boss and popular 1950s morning man who died in 2002. One of the things that I learned from him was so valuable going forward in my career. He always said, be true to your beliefs, be true to your opinions. Don't try to say what you think someone else wants to hear. Mason said that lesson guides her work and the ethos of the station to this day. Dubbed the Voice of Montreal, CJAD celebrated its 80th anniversary on Monday. It was one of the first English-language commercial talk stations in Quebec, and today is one of the last. One reason CJAD has weathered the recent wave of radio station shutdowns across Montreal and Canada is good advocacy, longtime host Andrew Carter said. It was managed by people who understood what it was about and who had maybe grown up listening to it as well and advocated for it when budgets were going to be cut and so on, he said. They didn't allow it to happen. Mason, Carter, and news director Chris Bury remember covering Quebec's historic moments over the decades, including the Oka crisis of 1990, the 1989 Polytechnic massacre, the 2012 election night assassination attempt on then Parti Québécois leader Pauline Marois, the referendum in 1980 and 1995, and the 1998 ice storm. When the ice storm hit, the station itself lost power, and all of our transmitters collapsed under the weight of the accumulated ice, Mason recalled. We had a backup generator powering the newsroom and the broadcast facilities, but nothing else. So I remember working in the newsroom wearing a jacket. For Bury, an important moment was in the 2013 Lac-Mégantic rail disaster, which killed 47 people when a runaway train derailed and smashed into the center of the Quebec town. It happened on a Saturday morning, and we, like other media, were scrambling to cover through the weekend and do the best we could with it. But I was particularly proud of what we were able to pull off by Monday afternoon, when we had our Drive Home show, which was hosted live by Aaron Rand from the Relief Coordination Center that was set up near the site of the crash. We were hearing from people in the community and rescue officials and whatnot, and it was something that we ended up winning a national award for. So just a note that CJAD, which is 800 AM here in Montreal, on their website has a collection of special features including air checks, comments from former and current station staff, and historic broadcast clips. So it's probably something you might like to check out if you like historical radio.
Certainly one of the oldest stations in town, and that definitely is something unique.
They have like shares of over 30% in most of the rating periods. So they are a very, very popular station, and they do serve the only radio station really serving the English population these days in Montreal.
Yeah, the only other competition really in terms of news talk would be the CBC Radio 1, basically.
That's right.
So in our next news item, after 50 years, University of Ottawa's campus radio station to go silent. This is CBC News via Stephane St-Onge. After 50 years, CHUO 89.1 FM is preparing for its final broadcast. The University of Ottawa's campus radio station will cease live programming December 15th. Station manager Perugi Akarasewi confirmed to CBC. CHUO will continue airing pre-recorded content until March to fulfill its contract with the Canadian Radio, Television, and Telecommunications Commission. The station had been trying to raise $150,000 to keep its doors open, but CHUO's board of directors decided Monday night to end the campaign and shut down. News of the impending closure comes 2 years after University of Ottawa students voted in a referendum to end a special levy that funds the station. Akarasoe, who co-hosts the CHUO show Asian Influence, first joined the station as a volunteer in 2016 and said for her, the closure is personal. Everybody to me is like brother or sister. I don't have family here in Canada. I think the only place that I can literally go to talk about everything is CHUO. Jack Cohen, president of the University of Ottawa Students' Union, said he was disappointed by the decision to close the station. I especially think about our international student community and the wide variety of content that CHUO has done a great job in recent years of platforming to reach all students. The campus station was first established in 1975 as CHOR when the Students' Union got an AM license. The station moved to FM dial in 1991. Some of the station's hosts are still processing the news of the impending closure. So it's all a question of numbers and money when we, have the fund drive here to get money to keep everything operating. Unfortunately, radio stations have expenses, and community radio stations are not exceptions to the rule. And here, a simple vote by students has shifted everything.
Yeah, as you said, people here at CKUT are concerned about this story as well as I think any campus community station across the country is probably feeling a little nervous at this point in time. I received an email from our spoken word coordinator at CKUT, Jack Solar. He says, "This is a tragedy and we're following this situation. I would encourage you and your listeners to write, and we will give you an email address, bod-chair at seu-uosu.com, and tell them why you value community campus radio and stress the need to find a solution that doesn't involve dissolving the station." If this has happened in Ottawa, it did happen in Toronto a while back as well, where a station shut down. Like we say, if you believe in what these stations do, make people aware of it. And when they do look for funding, if you can help out in any way, it is certainly appreciated. Our next story comes to us from a radio station in Charlotte, North Carolina, WBT. Radio 1, the owners, expand Charlotte's favorite news talk station, WBT AM 1110 kHz, to powerful FM signal. Charlotte, North Carolina's Radio 1 Incorporated is turning up the volume in Charlotte with a major enhancement to its most trusted news brand. Beginning Thursday, December the 11th, WBT News Talk 1110 proudly began broadcasting on 107.9 FM, Charlotte's FM News Talk, bringing Charlotte's premier source for news, conversation, and community connection to a powerful 100,000-watt signal. Listeners will continue to enjoy their favorite lineup, including Good Morning BT with Bo Thompson and Beth Troutman, Vince Coakley, Peter Kaliner, Brett Winterbull, Brett Jensen, and TJ Ritchie, now with expanded clarity and reach throughout the region. As part of the strategic expansion, Radio 1 is optimizing its Charlotte cluster of stations. WLNK Mix 107.9, will now be found at 100.9 FM and 99.3 FM, continuing to deliver Charlotte's best mix for adult contemporary music fans with their full current on-air and local talent lineup. Praise 100.9 FM, Charlotte's inspiration station, will now broadcast on 102.5 and 610 AM, offering continuing inspirational and uplifting programming with current on-air lineup and local personality Melanie Pratt in the middays. 102.5, The Block, Charlotte's source for hip-hop and R&B, will be exiting the market. We're thrilled to elevate WBT to the FM dial, ensuring that even more listeners can connect with the voices they trust every day, said Marcia Landis, Vice President and General Manager of Radio 1 Charlotte. These moves further strengthen our position in the market and reinforce our commitment to serving Charlotte with the best local programming, news, and entertainment. With these changes, Radio 1 is doubling down on its legacy of local service, investing in community engagement, strengthening our signature brands, and ensuring Charlotte listening audiences receive the highest quality radio experience. Now, what they didn't mention in this particular article is what's happening on 1110. But Gilles, you were doing a bit of digging and you came up with something.
Yeah, the Radio Insight website actually also picked up the story, and they have a little more details on exactly what's going to happen. They're saying that WBT will simulcast on 1110 and 107.9 through the end of the year. And it will introduce some new programming in early January. So they say that in regards to WBT AM 1110, we will continue as a company. Radio 1 and Urban 1 will continue to proudly own and operate AM 1110 WBT. There's no question about that. But please stay tuned for announcements coming on what that programming will be. So 2 different distinct programming will happen, and 1110 will have something new to offer its audience.
It was really odd that the website for WBT itself didn't mention that 1110 was staying on. So fortunately, that other source of information fills in the gap. I'm sure DXers around North America were thinking, wow, if 1110 is empty, we're going to have a clear channel disappearing, and there'll be lots of different stations to try to hear on that frequency. But it looks like something will be there. We're just not sure what at this point in time.
I guess the difference is that they reported their own news of they're happy to go to 107.9. Radio Insight journalists said, well, we got questions and asked the good ones, so we know that 1110 is going to continue. So what's happening with our sun? Well, our sun this week, kind of funny thing, is that huge sunspot group that we were talking about that was to be dangerous and who knows what could happen, didn't do much. It just transited the surface of the sun, and now it's kind of leaving. The only sunspots that really flared are small sunspots that we weren't expecting to flare, some with really powerful flares. So we ended up having some geomagnetic storming and some really interesting bad conditions at times. But a lot of interesting stuff that I noticed on posts of the medium wave, the AM band. People hearing all sorts of things that they never hear. So, it depends what you're listening to. Doesn't mean that a geomagnetic storm or solar flares aren't necessarily that bad. They could actually change propagation. So in the coming week, it's getting a little more quiet, although there is a coronal hole that is going to send up some solar wind. So this could be something to look at. And there's also co-rotating interaction regions that might actually help in creating minor geomagnetic storms. Today's Sunday and by the early days of the week, but for the rest of the week, might be pretty quiet. The sunspot number 123, the solar flux 148. And, if you want to notice what's happening with propagation, you got to turn on a radio and listen.
I'm David Bachner of Guelph, Ontario, and I get my weekly radio news on the International Radio Report on CKUT 90.3 FM in Montreal.
So in our next story, we have share of ear results are a reminder of digital audio's limited reach. This is via Inside Radio. Edison Research's share of ear report for third quarter 2025 again brings good news for AM/FM radio, whether it's the medium's continued dominance of ad-supported audio media or its strength in vehicles. Arguably, the report's most important takeaway is how necessary AM/FM radio is to media plans focused on audio advertising. Edison shows that the unique daily reach of ad-supported Spotify, Pandora, and podcasts among persons 18 plus stands at 33%. Just one-third of Americans. Adding AM/FM radio to the mix boosts that daily reach to 74%. You'll miss two-thirds of America if your audio media plan only has digital audio. Cumulus Media, Westwood One, Audio Active Group Chief Insights Officer Pierre Bouvard says in an analysis of Edison's findings in Westwood One's blog. Share of ear, which has surveyed 4,000 Americans annually to measure daily reach of time spent for all forms of audio media since 2015, shows across the board dominance of AM/FM radio versus other ad-supported media, with its share of daily time spent at 64% for 18 plus and as high as 75% for the 50 years and older. AM/FM radio remains the dominant audio platform for marketers. Streaming music services remains a niche player with only a combined 13% ad-supported audio share between Spotify, Pandora, YouTube, and Amazon Music. Yet, as the blog notes, marketers and media agencies continue to significantly overestimate audience shares to Pandora and Spotify, while massively underestimating AM/FM's audience. Advertiser Perception's August 2025 study of more than 300 agencies and marketers found that AM/FM radio's perceived audience daily share was just 26% versus the actual 64%, while Pandora and Spotify together were as a perceived 41%, higher than AM/FM, while their actual combined share is just 11%. Edison's share of ear reveals AM/FM radio shares are 2.5 times greater than agency advertisers' perception. AM/FM radio is 11 times larger than ad-supported Spotify and 13 times bigger than ad-supported Pandora. Edison continues to show the power of AM/FM radio in cars, with share of daily ad-supported audio time spent at 84% among persons 18 and over. The far and away leader versus podcasts, 7%, and the combined share of ad-supported SiriusXM, Spotify, Pandora, and YouTube Music at 9%. Even among 18 to 34s, AM/FM's in-car share is a powerful 79%. Also worth noting in the share of ear findings is the significant growth of podcasts, with triple-digit growth across all demos since 2017. At a 20% share, 18 and over, podcasts now have the scale and democratic mass appeal to be considered a major media solution, Bouvard said. The older the age group, the greater the growth in the podcast daily audience. Today, podcasts' greatest reach centers on 25 to 44s, with significant growth among 45 to 64s. As a result, the median age of podcast listeners has moved from 29 in 2017 to 39 in this most recent Edison report. In 2017, podcast daily reach was greatest among 18 to 24s. 8 years later, podcast daily reach surged, especially in older demographics. The podcast median age soars due to a massive influx of older listeners. The last 2 years have seen podcast median age grow from 34 in 2023 to 39 in this recent third quarter 2025 report. Still, podcasts remain one of the youngest media platforms. There is, and it does feel, and every time I do talk radio with people and younger people, there is that perception that radio is not as important as it actually is in reality. And there's this idea that internet streaming media is much more dominant than maybe the reality of it. We hear it all the time. We hear it everywhere. Doesn't mean that it is as influential as advertised. That's different.
Yeah, this study really focuses on the impact of and the reach of advertising via these different methods of entertaining people or broadcasting to people. So I think it all sort of builds up that importance of AM/FM, that as much as a lot of people seem to think it's going away, when it comes down to where the money is, people are reaching the advertisers through hearing their ads through AM and FM radio. And that's what the bottom line seems to be. All these other services are great, but they're not doing a whole lot for the advertisers. So I think they'll still keep putting their dollars, advertising dollars, behind radio, conventional radio. The next story is somewhat similar, and it comes from Inside Radio, and it talks about PPM trends. News Talk continues its ratings comeback. News Talk may not be at the levels of 3 years ago. However, Inside Radio's monthly analysis of average quarter-hour share data in the PPM markets, covering Monday to Sunday, 6 a.m. to midnight, shows significant recent uptrends among persons 6 and over and the 18 to 34 group, suggesting the format may be on the comeback trail. During Nielsen's November survey, covering October 16th to November 12th, News Talk, which is top-ranked 6 and over, saw a steady 6% share gain from August to November, 9.8 to 10.4, and a 24% lift in 18 to 34 from 3.3 to 4.1%. These increases were likely driven by a wide array of issues such as economic concerns, the immigration crackdown in major cities, the push to release the Epstein files, military actions in the Caribbean, the assassination of Charlie Kirk, the government shutdown, widespread anti-Trump protests, and the gubernatorial and mayoral election results in the eastern U.S. This surpassed 2024's August to November trends, arguably more expected in a presidential election year, with 6 plus up 5%, 10.4 to 10.9%, and 18 to 34 up 3%, 3.9 to 4. While share over the same period were up 13%, 6.2 to 7 for persons 25 to 54 in 2024, they were up just 5% this year, 6.0 to 6.3. News Talk still has a way to go to match its share level of January to November 2022, as the big picture shows off its 6 plus, 10.9, 10.3, 21%, 1834, 4.8 to 3.8, and 11%, 25 to 54, 7.2 to 6.4 for years to date 2025. When it comes to steady growth in 2022, Contemporary Christian continues to be the top performer, with 6 plus share up 34%, 1834 up 52%, and 25 to 54 up 33%. Year over year, November shares are also up across the board, up 18%, 6 plus, 13%, 18 to 34, and 16%, 25 to 54. Adult Contemporary, which ranks second 6 plus and first 1834 and 25 to 54, has also seen share gains over the past 3 Nielsen surveys, even as it's trended downward since 2023. While growth is not as significant looking at 6 plus, up just 1% August to November, 1830 to 34 share is up 11%, and 25 to 54 up just 1%. The only other format with notable declines in all 3 demographics is classic rock, which shares highs posted during 2025 have steadily fallen. Classic rock 6+ share is off 13% from July to November, while down 15% since March for 18 to 34 and 14% since July in 25 to 54. Depending on the demo, Spanish Contemporary is trending either up or down. Since March, the format is up 19 among 25 to 54s, while down 18% since April for 18 to 34s. As was seen in the last PPM trend reports, 4 other music formats have lost share during 2025 in the 18 to 34. Second-ranked Contemporary Hit Radio saw a 7% decrease since February, including an 11% March to August slide, while Hot AC is down 14% from July, Classic Hits 13% since February, and Modern Alternative Rock 20% since June. So I think what's showing here is that all the news out there that's going on is attracting listeners to talk radio and news talk radio. So they're seeing increases, and some people are getting away from music, maybe going to other things to listen to their music. But when the radio is turned on, they seem to want to hear people giving them news and talk information.
And that's what I think is happening mostly. I could see that you want to listen to what's happening in the news, what's happening in the world. You'll tune to your favorite radio news talk station, even local news. But when it comes to music, you might start, your favorite device that you're going to listen to instead of maybe tuning a radio station to do it. So I think that could hurt music a lot more than news talk if it's a trend, basically. So we have some amateur radio, DXPEDITIONS, and special events.
I have a few interesting expeditions going on. The first is South Korea. Kevin, Alpha India 5 Sierra Mike, will be active as his call sign with a HL1 prefix. So HL1/AI5SM from December 15th until January the 1st. And he will be mostly portable with parks on the air using CW, SSB, and FT8.
From South Sudan, once again, Diya YI1DZ Delta Zulu will be active as Zulu 81 Delta starting around December 14th. The activities from 40 to 6 meters using single sideband and FT8, perhaps some 60 and 80 meters.
From French Guiana, Pierre, Foxtrot 4 Golf Papa Kilo, will once again be active as Tango Oscar 2 Foxtrot Yankee from December 22nd until January the 15th in holiday style on HF using SSB only.
From Suriname, Joe, Oscar Zulu 0 Juliet, will be operating during December 21st and January 2nd, 2026, as Papa Zulu 5 Oscar Zulu, operating from 160 to 6 meters using CW, SSB, FT8, and perhaps some RTTY from Papa Zulu 5 Romeo Alpha Rental Shack. And so we are out of time.
We thank you for tuning in. You can reach us by email, radioreport@yahoo.com. Our show is live streaming and archived at ckut.ca. Our Facebook group is International Radio Report. We welcome Gabe in Massachusetts as a new member. And finally, our YouTube channel, where you can go and listen to our show at your convenience and subscribe to the channel. You'll find us at youtube.com/@IRR. Have a great week. We'll have our pre-Christmas show for you next Sunday here on CKUT. We hope you can tune in then. You've been listening to the International Radio Report on CKUT 90.3 FM in Montreal.
Have a great week, everybody.
The station opened in 1945, becoming the soundtrack for many Montreal families.
I listened to it as a kid. Well, I listened to it because my parents listened to it, right? And that's the story of a lot of people. I've always said, CJAD will get you at some point in your life.
Former general manager Rob Braid was hooked on day one.
It inspired me. It didn't intimidate me. I got to work with Gord St. Clair George Balkan, Ted Blackman.
And while those familiar names are honored, there are new faces now. With 8 decades of history, even the old traffic helicopter is the stuff of legend. At the center of this National Film Board documentary, newscaster Trudy Mason remembers her father being so engaged with a segment on the referendum, he blew a stop sign.